There can be no reconciliation with masters as long as they are masters. No reconciliation as long as men are in prison. There can be no communication between the masters and the slaves until masters no longer exist as masters, are no longer present as masters. The Christian task is to rebel against all masters, destroying their pretensions to authority and ridiculing the symbols of power.
Hey guys, this is Tommy with Tommy Nation Politics. How's everyone doing today? Tommy Nation Politics. Are you someone who doesn't bend to the will of the conventional wisdom? Someone who rebels, questions authority, who doesn't just watch the mainstream media, go along with all the bandwagon mentality? If so, this is Tommy with Tommy Nation Politics. How's it going, guys?
Stokely Carmichael, later known as Kwame Ture, is widely credited with popularizing the phrase Black Power during the Civil Rights Movement. He first used the phrase publicly on June 16, 1966, during the March Against Fear in Mississippi. Civil rights activist James Meredith had been shot during the march, and Carmichael, then a leader of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, took the stage and said, "We've been saying freedom for 6 years and we ain't got anything. What we gonna start saying now is Black Power." The phrase quickly became a rallying cry for those frustrated with the slow pace of nonviolent civil rights strategies. It called for racial pride, economic empowerment, and self-determination for Black communities. While others had used similar language before, Carmichael's bold declaration gave the phrase national attention and helped launch the Black Power movement of the late 1960s and 1970s.
We're free-thinking, innovative, totally open-minded new progressive media. We are checking out historical facts, the embodiments of evil, deception, oppression, and the notion of good versus evil.
And the thief cometh not but for to steal, and to kill, and to destroy. But I am come that they might have life, and that they might have it more abundantly. St. John 10, verse 10. Are there any questions?
Hey, watch it, baby. This cat is heavy on religion.
I can see this has become a struggle between good and evil. Satan has a question.
Yes, sir, Chaplain Gill, but since neither one of us are God, I don't think either one of us are in any position to say who's good and who's evil.
Why don't you just ask your question?
We were discussing the disciples. What color were they?
Well, I don't think we know that for certain.
But they were Hebrews, were they not?
That's right.
As was Jesus. Jesus was also a Hebrew.
Why don't you just ask your question?
What color were the original Hebrews?
I have told you that we don't know that for certain.
Then you can't believe for certain that Jesus was white.
Just a moment. God is white. Isn't it obvious?
Well, that is obvious, but we don't know if it's obvious that God is white. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that Jesus did not have blonde hair and blue eyes. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that the images of Jesus that are on prison walls and churches throughout the world are not historically correct, because history teaches us that Jesus was born in a region where the people had color. There's proof in the very Bible that you ask us to read in Revelation, 1st chapter, verse 14 and 15, that Jesus had hair like wool and feet the color of brass.
Just what are you saying?
I'm not saying anything. I'm proving to you that Jesus was not, and I might quote one of our Indian brothers, he was not a paleface.
Aha.
Amen.
Isn't that interesting?
Free thinking, innovative, and totally open-minded. The term white devil emerges most prominently in the teachings of the nations of Islam during the 20th century. According to mythology, a figure named Yaqub, a black scientist, engineered the white race through a process of selective breeding, eugenics, if you will, creating a people who were, in their doctrine, inherently deceptive, violent, bent on domination. This wasn't just a myth for myth's sake. It was a counter-myth. It was a reversal of the white supremacist pseudoscience that had, for centuries, painted black people as inferior, cursed, or less than human. By calling the white man the white devil, black Muslims were not insulting. They were flipping the script on white supremacy. They were saying, if you can invent a theology that justifies slavery, we can invent one that unmasks your brutality. It's a flipping of the script, guys. Flipping of the script. And the script, guys, is about wealth, legacy, all the things that American politics is really about. The talking points, the structure, the system. These are the things that have been keeping Black America purposely, eternally, perpetually on a plantation, even long after the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th Amendment went into effect. These are doctrines inherently deceptive, inherently violent. They're a neoliberal nightmare. And both the Democrats and the Republicans are roots, they're systems, they're organizations that from the very beginning were born in white supremacy, molded by it. So, in this political game of power politics,
of racial equality,
there are two factions that have been reigning supreme, that have been fighting each other since the beginning of their inception. These two factions are none other than something that Malcolm X spoke about as well. In the 1960s, that was about, what was that, 65 years ago, guys? See if this is familiar to you guys.
In this crooked game of power politics here in America, the Negro, namely the race problem, integration, civil rights issue, are all nothing but tools used by the whites who call themselves liberals against another group of whites who call themselves conservatives, either to get into power or to retain power. Among whites here in America, the political teams are no longer divided into Democrats and Republicans. The whites who are now struggling for control of the American political throne are divided into liberal and conservative camps. The white liberals from both parties cross party lines to work together toward the same goal, and white conservatives from both parties do likewise. The white liberal differs from the white conservative only in one way. The liberal is more deceitful, more hypocritical than the conservative. Both want power, but the white liberal is the one who has perfected the art of posing as the Negro's friend and benefactor. And by winning the friendship and support of the Negro, the white liberal is able to use the Negro as a pawn or a weapon in this political football game that is constantly raging between the white liberals and the white conservatives. The American Negro is nothing but a political football, and the white liberals control this ball through tricks or tokenism. The American Negro is nothing but a political football, and the white liberals control this ball through tricks or tokenism.
Tokenisms.
False promises of integration.
False promises.
And civil rights.
False civil rights.
In this game of deceiving and using the American Negro, the white liberals have complete cooperation of the Negro civil rights leader, who sell our people out for a few crumbs of token recognition, token gain,
Token games.
token progress.
Token progress.
In the New York Tribune, in an editorial dated February the 5th, 1960, they pointed out that out of 11 million qualified Negro voters, only 2,700,000 actually take time to vote. This means that, roughly speaking, only 3 million out of the 11 million Negroes who are qualified to vote take an active part. And the remaining 8 million remain voluntarily inactive. And yet
Voluntarily
it is this
inactive,
small
guys.
minority, the 3 million Negro voters, who help determine who will be the next president.
So the creation of this political process of liberals and conservatives, the power politics game, there's soft power and there's power politics. There's a creation of good and evil, of stark differences and distinctions. These are the things that the political parties use as talking points in order to achieve some difference or semblance of difference from each other, so that you might be invested in the game and wish to elect them into office, into power, centers of power. But this is an illusion. Just like the creation of the devil and the end of the white man's rule was an illusion for the Muslims and the influence of the Nation of Islam, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that promise never came to pass. That prophecy never came to pass. We saw a neoliberal New World Order in the 21st century that was stronger, more violent, and more deceitful than ever before. But I was looking at the Department of Theology, Fordham University, reading some articles, and I came across Marjorie Corbman, who was a black theologian. And she wrote an article examining the emergence of black theology movement in the late 1960s and the early 1970s in the context of religious, diverse political movements, such as the Muslim movement, and the also Reverend Martin Luther King was a Christian. And he had a nonviolent movement at the same time as the radical Muslim nationalists did. The possibility of a break in identification with white Christianity and white supremacy was essential to us receiving the self-esteem that we might actually be humans and not 3/5 a person. It's still written in the Constitution that we are, guys, but the imminent apocalyptic destruction of the white America from theologians like Cone and Klieg, ministers like Louis Farrakhan, they constantly talked about the imminent judgment of white America. They talked about how black theologians were able to retain their Christian identity and sever the entanglement of white supremacy through the truth that Jesus was a Hebrew in the Middle East with bronze, copper skin, and curly, woolly hair. And in the groundbreaking 1969 text, Black Theology and Black Power, the theologian James Cone judged both the black church and the white church of hypocrisy, having betrayed the gospel of Jesus Christ. The gospel of Jesus Christ, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word became flesh, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God. The most important commandments: love your neighbor as yourself and love the Lord your God with all your soul, all your might, and all your body. Those were assessed to be obsolete to the power of capitalist wealth, exploitation of labor, and of course, the taking up of resources from other countries, other places, other peoples. The method of, I say it's cultural plagiarism. They call it cultural appropriation. But this article adopts a historical methodology in its intervention, Black theology intervention, of ongoing theological approaches to religious pluralism and the hypocrisy of the black church and the white church, and how it's clear, if you have any kind of sense at all, you realize that Middle Eastern people were not white back there. It was too much sun for whiteness. Whiteness was, I guess it was, it caused because the moving away of the equator. It was a lack of pigmentation due to not enough sun. Who knows what it is? But what it isn't is a superior race of people. What it is a self-described, self-absorbed, self-made race. There's only one race in the entire fucking world, guys. It's the human race. Yeah, everything else is just propaganda. Everything else is the white devil. And that's where the white devil comes from. That's where that saying, the white devil, comes from, guys. The connotation is sharp, uncompromising, unapologetic. It's not about individual morality. It's not about people. It's not about white people. It's about the structure of power that bases a systemic white supremacist base of foundational powers, an inferiority to colored and non-white people. It was a connotation of a culture that challenges narratives, dismantles illusions, pushes for radical independence and wokeness, in the authentic sense of the term woke, guys, not the culturally appropriated sense of the term. Again, the culturally appropriation, it extends to all bounds of every part of every culture. One of the things that I noticed a lot with liberals and conservatives is they adopted or appropriated the word woke, changed the meaning, changed the entire message, changed the connotation, and made it a critique on white fragility, and made it a buzzword on Fox News to symbolize weakness. Some conservative told me that wokeness was weakness. No, actually, wokeness was alertness. Wokeness was a way to stay alive. Wokeness was a way to stay free in a place where the CIA was trafficking and selling drugs in our neighborhoods, where they were burning down our black Wall Streets, when they were terrorizing our children. We got weapons, we got organized, and we stayed woke. And that kept us alive, and that made us prosper, and that liberated us from white supremacy. But not to the certain extent that white supremacy has ceased to exist, because there's still two factions, two roots, two foundations of the white supremacist system that are still intact today. And we vote for them every 4 years and 2 years, guys. The factions that got together and decided free states or slave states, every 2 years and 4 years, you go to a school or a library and you pull a lever for a candidate from that gang that is responsible for more murders, more deaths, more destruction, more evil than any other gang in any country of any part of the world in any civilization. You vote for them. They have more blood on their hands than the Crips and the Bloods combined. They are the oldest gangs in America. And they are the Democrats and the Republicans. They are a systemically racist, white supremacist founded gang. And that's the realist. That's the realness, guys. That is the state of our union. How we can, as black people, decide that we would assimilate into a white supremacist system and accept the gangbanging parties, the murderous, psychopathic, narcissistic, neoliberal, capitalist exploitation, greedy, elitist, loving, gangbanging Democrats and Republicans. How we could decide that we would assimilate to that? That was all a decision that was not made for us again. That was a fear decision, because we had tried to make our own wealth and protect that in this place called Tulsa, where we had a black Wall Street and we had our own shops and we had our own towns, we had our own stores. We had our own civilization, we had our own money, and we had our own security, we had our own police. And the Ku Klux Klan was afraid that that tenet of white supremacy, that we were inferior, that we were not able to accomplish the things of a white person, that was being proven and demonstrated by leaps and bounds. And they could not abide that. They could not accept that. They could not let that maintain. To see the Black Tulsa prosper would be to see their lies exposed. And so what they did was they burnt down Black Tulsa, Wall Street. They killed everyone in the city. And we were so afraid that we decided that we were not going to try to, outside the bounds of a white supremacist system, out with our own wills, with our own minds, with our own destinies. We were not going to try to build anything. We were going to assimilate into the Democrat and Republican political power that plagues our country today, that has delivered a deficit of $35 trillion, that has increased poverty consistently and consecutively, that has driven us into income inequality not seen since the Gilded Age, that has expanded the military-industrial complex, that has created an overwhelming amount of drug overdoses because of the unhappiness and sickness of the society that we live in. It has created us, what I call, guys, it's called a neo-slavery. It's what the 13th Amendment prohibited was just outright slavery, but there are always different ways. There's always different ways to get around things, guys. One of the different ways you can get around slavery is to find a prison for your mind. And nothing makes a prison for your mind more palatable than a fear. Fear, my friends, false events appearing real.
I would like to add someone to our group here. Professor Paul Weiss, a Sterling Professor of Philosophy at Yale. Were you able to listen to the show backstage?
I heard a good deal of it, but then I was behind the rostrum here.
Yes.
So I heard only some of it.
Did you hear anything that you disagreed with?
I disagreed with a great deal of it. And, of course, there's a good deal I agree with. But I think he's overlooking one very important matter, I think. Each one of us, I think, is terribly alone. He lives his own individual life. He has all kinds of obstacles in the way of religion or color or size or shape or lack of ability, and the problem is to become a man.
But what I was discussing was not that problem, really. I was discussing the difficulties, the obstacles, the very real danger of death thrown up by the society when a black man attempts to become a man.
All this emphasis upon black man and white does emphasize something which is here, but it emphasizes it or perhaps exaggerates it, and therefore makes us put people together in groups which they ought not to be in. I have more in common with a black scholar than I have with a white man who's against scholarship. And you have more in common with a white author than you have with someone who's against all literature. So why must we always concentrate on color or on religion or this? There are other ways of connecting men.
I'll tell you this. When I left this country in 1948, I left this country for one reason only, one reason. I didn't care where I went. I might have gone to Hong Kong, I might have gone to Timbuktu. I ended up in Paris, on the streets of Paris, with $40 in my pocket on the theory that nothing worse could happen to me there than had already happened to me here. You talk about making it as a writer by yourself. You had to be able then to turn off all the antenna with which you live, because once you turn your back on this society, you may die. You may die. And it's very hard to sit at a typewriter and concentrate on that if you're afraid of the world around you. The years I lived in Paris did one thing for me. They released me from that particular social terror, which was not the paranoia of my own mind, but a real social danger visible in the face of every cop, every boss, everybody. I don't know what most white people in this country feel, but I can only include what they feel from the state of their institutions. I don't know if white Christians hate Negroes or not, but I know that we have a Christian church which is white and a Christian church which is black. I know, as Malcolm X once put it, that the most segregated hour in American life is high noon on Sunday. That says a great deal for me about a Christian nation. It means that I can't afford to trust most white Christians and certainly cannot trust the Christian church. I don't know whether the labor unions and their bosses really hate me. That doesn't matter, but I know I'm not in their unions. I don't know if the real estate lobby is anything against black people, but I know the real estate lobbies keep me in the ghetto. I don't know if the Board of Education hates black people, but I know the textbooks they give my children to read and the schools that we have to go to. Now, this is the evidence. You want me to make an act of faith, risking myself, my wife, my woman, my sister, my children, on some idealism which you assure me exists in America, which I have never seen.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that Jesus did not have blonde hair and blue eyes. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that the images of Jesus that are on prison walls and churches throughout the world are not historically correct, because history teaches us that Jesus was born in a region where the people had color.
See, that's why they didn't want us to read, guys. That's why they did not want us to read. Because if we read things, we would figure out that they lie and deceive and propagandize to put us in a position that we feel that we have no choices, that we feel we have no options, but their options. And that's what today, that's what the present is, guys. It is a culmination of the fear that we felt, the manipulation that they implemented, and the treason, and the bloodshed, all for greed, all for wealth, guys. It wasn't for God. It wasn't for Judeo-Christian principles. It makes me feel ashamed. Like, I don't think conservatives realize this. They always talk about this is a Judeo-Christian country. If you guys really thought this was a Judeo-Christian country, wouldn't you be ashamed of yourselves? That instead of listening to loving your neighbor as yourself, loving the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and body, you decided to go through the eye of a needle with a rich man. You decided to hurt and not protect the children. And Jesus said, it is better for a man to tie a millstone around his neck and put himself into the ocean than to harm one of these. Jesus said, blessed are the poor, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and search for righteousness, for they shall be filled. And those were the words of Jesus Christ. This is not Jesus Christ. This is not Judeo-Christian principles. How you think that you are acting on Judeo-Christian principles, how you think that you guys are representing Judeo-Christian principles, if I were you, I would just not talk about Judeo-Christian principles, because that would be an embarrassment. That would be an embarrassment. That would mean that you are a hypocrite. That would mean that you are going to the lake of fire with the evil one. And God will famously say to you, get away from me, I did not know you. And you will say, Lord, Lord, did I not do all these things in your name? Yes. But get away from me. I never knew you. So, basically, God, the central teachings of the Nation of Islam were transmitted in the form of lessons that were expected to be memorized by members, just like most religions, including passages from the Quran, more regularly from a handful of documents from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And that helped to keep, that helped black liberation and black power to survive and thrive. Unfortunately for everybody, religion can't do it. Man cannot live by bread alone. You have to have courage and you have to have the will to exist. Israel always talks about how they have the right to exist. No one ever talks about if they have the will to exist. Because if they had the will to exist, they wouldn't need $300 billion from us. They wouldn't need intelligence from us. They wouldn't need surveillance from us. They wouldn't need weapons from us. They would either have those weapons, or they would be good neighbors, and they would not be starting wars with every one of their neighbors for fear of their non-existence. They're not afraid of their neighbors. They're not afraid of us. They spy on us. They lie to us. They bribe our politicians. Yeah, sure, they have the right to exist. Does Israel have the will to exist? That's my question. Instead of do you condemn Hamas, do you have the will to exist, Israel? Israel, I want to see that demonstrated. If you're such a important ally, I would like my important ally to at least have a will to exist, guys. But the progressive spaces today, this this black liberation ideology, it resonates less and less with the concurrent propagandization of the talking points of the Democrats and Republicans, the race baiting that the liberals have started to, by virtue signaling, implement themselves without the help of the political organizations or apparatuses. The denial of the stain of history that was slavery by the right-wing or MAGA Republicans, and the non-acknowledgement of the setbacks and the outright violent activities that kept us from succeeding, like the Irish did, like the Chinese, like the Koreans. None of them had people in white hoods go into their neighborhoods and burn down everything they had. Nobody has hated us as much as they did, and I don't think we've ever been. I think honestly, guys, I think we've been the most hated of any time. I know there was like no Catholics, no Irish, but like who decided to go into like a Catholic neighborhood and just like burn everything to the ground and hang people from trees? Like, and then you notice, guys, that they talk about Christian love again with Charlie Kirk during his assassination, and the first thing they do is start to rag and start to riot and start to threaten HCBUs, historical black colleges. Like, we are literally the original, we're the first hate. We're the hate that they can never stop hating. And it's old, guys. It's old. It's kind of like, this propaganda is kind of like not working as well as it used to. We used to be so set on, like, staying with the group, staying on the plantation. We got to vote Democrat. We got to vote Republican. Little did we know, guys, that some of the things that Charlie Kirk was saying about the Civil Rights Act, I mean, they were true. It's just that we couldn't really hear enough because of the white liberals screaming about how, he's trying to take away our civil rights. But in reality, guys, if you realize that the United States Constitution says, we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, promote the general welfare, secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, hand down by God inalienable rights of life, liberty, and happiness, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with such. The Fourth Amendment, right to privacy. The Fifth Amendment, right to non-incrimination. The 14th Amendment, the 26th Amendment. These are all the vote for voting. These are all American rights. These are all rights that any American that was born in America and the jurisdiction of our country is entitled to under our birth citizenship birthright. But literally, in 1964, we literally had to establish a Civil Rights Act that gave statutory authority to authorize the federal government to, on our behalf, tell the state governments that we had to have these rights because we were Americans. And under the 14th Amendment, we were naturalized as Americans. Because we weren't citizens, guys. We were 3/5, remember. So literally, the Constitution says that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with inalienable rights of life, liberty, and happiness. And the amendments enshrine to us the rights of voting, the rights of non-discrimination. The Constitution already defines all of these rights as rights that we have. But we had to have a Civil Rights Act, clearly because the state governments were not acknowledging that we were people. Do you get that, guys? Do you get how Charlie Kirk said the Civil Rights Act shouldn't have happened because that's why? But you don't realize that, guys, because you don't realize that. So, like, this guy was on the right. So, like, they got to have your votes on the left. They've got it. What did Malcolm X say about it? The liberals have, they've become the Negro's friend and benefactor, giving them token games, token prizes, token promises, false promises of integration. They've got to lie to you. They've got to fucking smear Charlie Kirk and say, this is why. He wants to take away your civil rights. If you guys just listen to what he said, it's actually true. We shouldn't have had the Civil Rights Act. We should have had all of these rights already because we were human beings. We were Americans. We were all born here, African Americans. And we have all the rights to try to the Constitution. Because all men are created equal, endowed by their creator with inalienable rights of life, liberty, and happiness. So there shouldn't have been a Civil Rights Act. That's what he was trying to say. I agree with Charlie Kirk. I agree that we shouldn't have had to have a Civil Rights Act. We should have had to have the expansion of a federal government that to this day has expanded now completely out of our control. Because we've abdicated the Constitution, because we've abdicated our duty to promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, because we've given the reins of power over to the Democrats and Republicans and forsaken our birthright and forsaken our values, this is what happens, guys. And people are complaining about Trump a lot. Yes, he can't go through a single day without ending an economic industry or destroying people's lives in some kind of different way by incarcerating people, violently taking them to other countries and incarcerating and torturing them there. Yes, the federal government has expanded to not only not give a safety net or security for people of our country, but to create prisons for undocumented immigrants. That is what our government's doing. They're not protecting us. They're not helping us. They're giving money to terrorist, genocidal maniacs like Netanyahu, and they're building prisons for immigrants that will soon be our homes because none of us can afford, in this economy, housing. Do you understand, guys, what happens when we abdicate our duties, when we neglect our birthrights, when we fall in the face of false events appearing real? When we decide to vote for the lesser of two evils instead of the good? When we decide to settle? When we decide to accept? When we decide to comply? When we decide to do these things, guys, that is when we're slaves. And some of us have never stopped being slaves. Black, white, doesn't matter. This is not about race. Race doesn't even exist, guys. There's only one race. This social construct was created for you to be controlled, for you to be manipulated, and you have played right into the hands of the enemy, of every single regular American. You've served the will of the elites, the robber barons, that through a New Deal managed to stay in power and in influence because they gave us concessions of a weekend and 8-hour work day, but they never stopped wanting you to be a slave. And slowly but surely, we have forgotten our birthright, we've abdicated our duty, and now we have accepted their framing of our society. And I would argue, guys, that would be the reason why there's so many overdoses in this country. That would be the reason why there's so much mental health issues in this country. That would be the reason why there's so many mass pew-pews in this country. Maybe it's not the guns. Maybe it is mental health, but maybe it all stems from two parties. That their first compromise in 1850 was Democrats and Republicans, was free states or slave states. And everything that we've built on that, from that day to this day, is the fruits, it's the fruit of the harvest. So the harvest is here, guys, it's fall. Happy fall. What fruit shall we yield with the harvest? Shall we yield bad fruit or good? It's your choice. You have the choice. Don't let anybody tell you that it's a wasted vote. Don't let anybody tell you that you're misinformed, that you're spreading misinformation. Don't let anybody tell you what you are, who you are, and how to be. You be free-thinking, innovative, open-minded. You be free. The minute you stop doing that is the minute that you're a slave.